And we're back again. Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday, June 17th. Douglas, how are you?
What's up, Chris? Living the dream. Still trying to figure out the whole technology thing, which is why I keep looking at my phone.
I
We're
know
both
this is
testing watch parties on our personal profiles as well as this live, so I'll
yeah.
be looking down a few times. I'm just going to apologize if you see my bald spot a couple times during this episode.
No, this is good. This is our second go around in the pattern, I guess, to make sure that we get everything right. We're getting ready to launch the website. You can see down here in the scrolling ticker where you can find us online and on social, where we'll be pushing all this new content going forward weekly. We said 11:30 every week, coming to you live on Facebook and hopefully soon LinkedIn and all the other good stuff. So,
I can't wait for that LinkedIn Live invitation to come through.
oh, can't wait, can't wait. Now,
That
normally we kick off this live segment with news, but I think we decided that there's just so much negative news and bad news going on that I was like, you know what, let's just dive right into the content today, right?
Yeah, there's no real news story to share that's worthy of anything going on in the world, so we're just going to skip the news section altogether and just dive into the content.
Right. So we're
Although there was World War III popping up in Twitter yesterday, I was like, "Oh, that's funny." And then I looked, I was like, "No, that's a real thing." I'm like, "Well, we didn't have anything to go for June, July, so why not just have World War?"
Why not? Why not? So today we're going to talk about websites because, during this whole COVID thing, I noticed a rash of discussions about, hey, I need to update my website, or actually I need to refresh my website, and a lot of these things. And to me, again, people were doing things and not really knowing why they were doing them. So I really thought we should take this topic and explain again what a website should do, what it can do, and boil it down to the things that you should start implementing today as you look at the big picture going forward. Because we realize that, again, your website is the first thing people come to. We know a lot of companies, a lot of businesses spend a lot of money on their buildings and their lobbies because they think that's the first thing the client sees, right? So why isn't your website, and before they even step foot in your office, they're most likely checking out your website. So your website should be a direct reflection and indication of the type of business and the type of company you are, right, Doug?
100%. And the one mistake I see people make is they tend to make a website that looks like a brochure. And one of the things we want to do by the end of today is we want you to understand the difference between the site that you pay $5 a month for, like a Wix or Squarespace site, to the site you might pay 50 grand for, or the site you pay $500,000 for. But we'll walk you through the differences, and ultimately you'll be able to make the decision of where do you sit and what's the right fit and why are sites like that so expensive. So I'm excited to dive in. The reason we got into this, Chris and I were talking about a couple projects, both in the past and futures, and the one complaint we get from people all the time is, well, I can get somebody on Fiverr to do it for $500. You can. And for some people, hiring a freelancer and doing it cheap might be the right thing. But you have to understand what you're sacrificing when you do that and then make the decisions. What is the right site for you to build? And what are some of the things you need to look at today? And the cool thing about COVID, I think a lot of people took the time to be like, wow, we're not doing a lot. This is one of those housekeeping items that we didn't update.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get the thing where it needs to be so that when we reopen, we're there.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, why we had a lot of discussion because, again, people weren't able to be at trade shows and events, and obviously you can't just curl up in a ball and sit in the corner. You still have to actively have a presence with your customers, your leads, and all that. And the first thing that people were doing, again, was going to websites. And as you mentioned, Doug, people are like, we should probably revisit this since we're not doing a whole lot of anything else right now. So with that, I mean, you had mentioned a few things in there, Doug, like the difference between a let's say a $5,000 website and a $500,000 website. And ultimately comes down to, again, like what you want your website to do. I mean, is it just a brochure? Is it a billboard for people just to stop and look at it and go, oh, that's nice? Or are you going to utilize it as a tool for lead capture, lead generation, nurturing, and really enhancing that customer experience to be in line with your brand? And Doug, walk us through when you mentioned Wix and Squarespace and some of those generic kind of templates that are generally cheaper for people. What does that usually break down to, or what does that usually equate to for a customer or somebody that uses a service like that?
So one thing before I start, I want to give people a little bit of terminology just so they understand. So one of the most common misconceptions, and the tool that builds most of these sites is what's called a content management system. The acronym you'll hear developers use is called a CMS. So Squarespace and Wix, those are a CMS and a hosting platform tied together in one thing. So they built a package so that it's really easy for most small businesses or most small solopreneurs who just need something simple to start. So those are good tools. The most common you start to hear is WordPress as a CMS, and there are more and more platforms coming out now which are rivaling or going head to head with WordPress. But WordPress is kind of the most common, followed by Drupal, or then you move into custom. Mm-hmm. The one common thread across all of those and where you start to see the increase in pricing comes down to two things. One is the amount of intelligence that you're going to gather from it and how you use the data. And number two is the user experience. So if I look at a Squarespace or a Wix site, or even some of the base templates inside of WordPress, they're relatively simple. Yeah. They're designed to basically host, 5 to 10 pages. So it's got an about section, a contact page, your home page, maybe or maybe not a blog, and then maybe some landing page. When you start to move up and you get beyond those core 5 to 10 packages, you're going to have to start to integrate more of a user experience. You have to be more thoughtful about the journey. And if you were to think about it, like Chris mentioned, like you got a beautiful office, well, this site, if you have more rooms and more experiences that you want the customer to go through, you have to be methodical about how do they come through our site and move from one place to the other. On the back end of the site, and this is where it becomes really valuable, is the way we collect and use the data. So if you've heard of the term customer journey mapping, which looks at this is how somebody engaged with it on social, they came to our site and then they did this thing. So they may have come to our homepage, then navigated to About Us, or went to a specific product. If you go on to e-commerce, or a great example I will always reference is Wayfair. Mm-hmm. If you go on to Wayfair's social, or if you see Wayfair ad on any social platform and click it, one of the things that you're going to notice is that experience inside of Wayfair's platform, both on the app and online, it tends to mirror exactly what you looked at. So the thing that you came in on the ad, they also all of a sudden have suggested products. Then when you go back to that social platform or any social platform, you start to see that thing follow you. That's the level of intelligence where they're fine paying $500,000 or $1 million to develop the entire ecosystem. But when you go from Wix to WordPress to something like an Adobe Experience Manager, those price increments tend to follow. And it's simply because of the need for you to map the journey and understand how the data and integrations to other platforms starts to evolve. Mm-hmm. And then you have an opportunity to figure out, okay, hey, this customer actually is interested in this product. They're raising their hand saying, hey, somebody should probably connect with me. And that's when you start to integrate back into email marketing campaigns. You can use things like a smart pixel, which will help identify who that user is. You can start to do retargeting ads. So for example, if they left, you serve them content to bring them back and continue the journey. Mm-hmm. But if you're not using the right platforms for what you're trying to accomplish in your business, you won't have the right tools to do the job and to get people across the finish line. Now, the same thing can be said if you overinvest in the platform, you may just have too much going on and not have enough of the pieces in play. But it's really important to go through the process and understand what is it that we're trying to build? What is it that we're trying to accomplish in our marketing? And does the website serve as the right tool for what we're trying to do? Most people will just say, hey, I have this budget. I have $3,000, I have $5,000 to build a website. But they didn't look at the entire marketing plan and say, hey, this is one of the crucial pieces. What do we need to do to get to this point? And that's the part where people need to understand the right investment and try to figure out what is it, what site do I need, because I'm going to integrate a mail program, I'm going to do some more advanced marketing tactics. Well, it's a little harder to do with a Wix or Squarespace. Not impossible, just a lot harder. And as you start to grow out pages, it becomes really hard. Mm-hmm. Now, on the very, very far end, I will tell you technology has gotten to the point where if you clicked on a specific ad, there's something called a UTM, it's a little line of code that follows it. It will actually build the page on the fly based on what you clicked on. So the homepage will build in nanoseconds based on your engagement and your user profile, the demographic data that's coming with it, so that that user experience is an individual one. And that is something you see more on $1 million plus sites, but that's the level it can get to. Now, I will probably tell probably 80% of the market, most small businesses can probably build the appropriate website somewhere between $2,500 to $10,000, and then have the additional elements within marketing. But if you have more than like 12 pages or 20 pages, you're realistically going to be that $25,000 to $75,000 mark. And it might sound like a lot, but just think about having 25 pages that we need to map and understand where they fit into the journey, the data tags that have to go with it, and how those things loop back into the next action we want to have. So it might be moving them into some type of sales conversation or to a landing page where it has really specific sales content, and we're moving them closer to that purchase behavior. That makes sense of it for you, Chris?
It does, and I want to step back a little because that was a lot to digest there, and kind of go back to the beginning about the website and having, templates and whatnot. Again, in our industry, I mean, people aren't in the business to kind of blend in. Everybody wants to be a market leader. So when you come to a website and you use templates that everybody else has typically used, you don't really stand out. I mean, again, you go to trade shows, you try to make your booth fancy, and you with the swag and the giveaways, whatever it is, you're trying to catch people's attention. You're trying to stand out from your competition. Your website should be no different. And then when it comes to actually building your site, you'd mentioned a lot in there, like with the strategies, and this is where I think the prices kind of differentiate and fluctuate. Yes, you could have a nice designer that can put aesthetically a great website together for you and look the piece, but they don't really understand your business. They don't understand your goals, and they're certainly not tying in your website into the giant machine that's your marketing and communications piece. As you step up in pricing, again, you start to work with people that understand your business. You start to understand your goals and all the other ways that you're trying to utilize your website as a tool, again, to drive business results. So that's where they see the thing. And when you get into the higher price points, I think, businesses that are local, brick and mortar, even if they are doing some sort of commerce online, but mainly not, I mean, they don't need a super intricate website. It's fairly simple. But I think most businesses in our industry fall into the category where they're trying to compete at a statewide or national, even global level, right? At that point, again, it's in my opinion, those websites that are lacking in some areas, it's not going to allow you to compete on those stages. So it's where do you prioritize how much you want to compete in the online or on the digital space? Because we know this is not a trend. Websites are an absolute necessity, again, and it's a component of your user experience and your brand. So going to the higher price tag type websites, again, when you're selling items that are high six figures, seven figure items, high touch points, high service, you almost absolutely have to have an enterprise class type website, just because you don't want to have a lapse again in that user experience with what your customers are used to, or your clients are used to when they actually get on the phone or get into your showroom or into your offices. You don't want to lose that. You don't want to have that drop off.
Well, I'd probably like to that same vein, I would probably equate it to like building a home. Like you get the Wix or the Squarespace, that's basically your camper van, is what it is. This will comes in the box. You can add some things to it, but you're somewhat limited.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move up to like a builder home. You got this package of, let's say, 8 to 10 houses you can pick from.
Yep.
You can customize some elements, but if you want to change the home, it gets really expensive because then you start to have these things that don't really fit in the design. And we see this all the time where people will use like a pre-canned design, like you're mentioning. And yes, this is very technical. You can create what's called a child theme, which is basically I'm going to take this design and I'm going to edit it to be kind of my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get a few years down the road and you're like, I want to change this and this. All of a sudden that theme or that box you built doesn't quite work anymore. And then you get up to just high-end custom. I'm going to build whatever house I want. And that's the one. It could start off at 50,000, could go up to 5 million, 10 million, 50 million. You can build whatever you want.
Yeah.
But to Chris's point, like if you're working, especially in business to business or selling a luxury product, it's important to understand that your journey and the customer journey is going to be very relative to what your website looks like.
Yeah.
If your sales process is 6, 9, 12, 18 months or longer, you're going to require multiple touch points. You need that custom home because you have to find ways to bring people back. If it's more transactional and for the most case, more business to consumer, you can get away with more of a core product because it's a very quick transaction. They don't need that long nurture sequence or multiple touch points. So the one thing I will tell you, regardless of what site you're trying to pick at, you need to take a step back and look at how the website fits into your marketing strategy. The last thing I see, like I want to see people do, is they build a site because it looks pretty and they ignore the fact of how it fits into what they're doing, and they end up having to build it twice. The single most expensive website you're going to build is the one you build more than once. And it's okay to like start somewhere and move up, just like buying homes. But it's really painful to build a site and ignore the strategy and then have to come back in and find out, oh, that's not compatible with some of the marketing stack you have. Mm-hmm. So taking the time to think through the website as a tool, not just as a brochure or the front end of your business, is really, really crucial to success.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think that's the biggest mistake, is that people view the website as a singular entity. Like, hey, we're going to have this website. It's going to look beautiful. It's going to look great, fancy pictures, whatever. But again, there's no strategy behind it. They're not using it as part of their tool, again, with their email, the direct mail, phone calls, face-to-face events. None of that's really incorporated in, other than maybe alerts or a calendar or a blog post every once in a while. But again, there's no way to really tie that all in, and then to measure and track all that. That's what you mentioned, data, or Doug, is the data.
Yeah.
What is your customer doing when they're coming to the website? What are they doing? How much do you want to know about what they're looking for, their intent? Because especially again in the longer buyer cycles, trying to understand intent and where they're at in the buying cycle is so critical to serving the right messages and knowing when to engage, when to not engage, and really just to qualify and score your leads, which again, every sales manager I think will tell you, hey, we want more leads. We want more leads, more. But what is the quality of them, right? Do you want your sales team to be, dialing for dough in a sense, where they're wasting all day picking up the phone, calling, and cold leads that are going dead or just blocking or shunning them? Or do you want to reach out to, let's say, 100 people that have all expressed interest and have raised their hand, have self-selected and said, look, this is what I'd really like to know more about, right? Now you have more meaningful conversations when your sales team has, and then your user, your customer, your lead or whatever, they feel there's more of a trust because they know that you're addressing whatever it is they're looking for.
Yeah.
So
the one other thing I see a lot of people really struggle with when it comes to websites
Uh-huh.
is this whole field of dreams concept. They feel like if they build it and they do the right SEO, that just traffic's going to flood into them. And then I see them like, wow, we built the site, and they get really frustrated. And one of the commitments we made to you as part of this podcast is have interruptions all the time with kids, like my son outside the door right now. One of the biggest things to think about when you're trying to figure out, like, is this website going to work, is an acronym I call TACT.
Yep.
So you need to have a traffic plan. Like, how are we going to get people in? SEO is just one element.
Yep.
Like, you can't build a site, have SEO, and think traffic people are going to come. Like, SEO will take between 12 and 18 months. We'll go deep into that into another show, but just understand, like, you need to actually have a traffic plan. How are we getting people here? The second thing is an action. Like, when we get them to a page, whether that's a landing page, whether it's our home page, what is the action we want them to take? What do we want them to do when we get here? To get to the homepage, they're not going to get to a homepage and click call or email you. So you have to have a story that's compelling to move them to the next step. The third thing, the C in TACT, is commitment. What do we want them to do? Do we want them to get to the page, watch a video, and then fill out a form? Do we want them to get to the page and commit to a phone call? What do we want? And the last thing is the T, so TACT, is transact. Now, one caveat I'll have when it comes to business, that transaction may not necessarily be a physical one. It might not be the purchase. It may be a transaction in time. We may want them to give us time and book a call. Now, you can use that in the macro level or the micro level, but the important thing is when you look at your website today and the one you're planning in the future, just go through those 4 simple steps and just think about it logically. How am I going to get them there? What do I want them to do? What's that requirement or conversion mechanism, that commitment we have? And then ultimately, how am I going to move them further down the purchase by making some form of transaction, whether it be time or money? If you do those things quickly, you're going to be able to assess your current pages, whether that's your whole site or a landing page for a campaign, or you're going to be able to look at that framework and be like, you know what? I'm missing elements in my traffic. I don't have a website problem. I have a traffic problem, which often is the case. And then when they get there, you can start to assess, okay, I fixed traffic. Now they're not doing the things I want. But just work through that framework, and I think it's going to give you a better lens in terms of, okay, I need to upgrade my site, or I need to put different things in place.
And just as a caveat to that, if you're looking at that stuff and you still have questions, shoot either of us a DM. We'll be happy to do a quick audit for you and just give you, again, a very quick assessment of what we're seeing and some recommendations. And then you can decide what to do it from there. But, how much, again, do you want your website to work for you? How much information do you want to gather from your website? That's really, again, I think the takeaway from today. And then when it comes to those people that are trying to decide, or at the point where they're trying to see who they're going to work with for their website, I think at the end of the day, like, I don't want to say hire the most expensive developer and designer. That's not what I'm trying to say. Hire the best that you can afford. That's somebody that understands your business, that understands your marketing plan, your communication strategy. All of that needs to come into play again when you build your website. Because again, a lot of us, you're not going to get in a plane with a pilot that's freelances every once in a while, right? That's not doing this day in and day out, flying at a professional level. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to get him. You're not going to get in a jet, a $70 million jet, with somebody that's only ever flown, a 172 traffic pattern. It's like you're not gonna get in a flight and do somebody with that. You want somebody that's certified and trained and an absolute professional when it comes to that. So that's my 2 cents when it comes to websites. Like I said, you guys can follow us online on social. We'll be pushing the website live later this week. And again, if you guys have any question about your website, shoot us a message. We're happy to do a quick audit. Just give you our own 2 cents and talk you through kind of what you should do next for our own personalized thing. If you're on, leave us a comments. Let us know like the biggest challenge you have with your website. And actually, I want to hear what your traffic plan is, because again, people put stuff out into the universe without any real, I think, goals or intent behind it. So I want to hear what people's traffic plans are and how they're utilizing their website and social and everything to integrate all that together.
Awesome. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
All right, and be on the lookout this week. Again, we'll start pushing stuff. Website will be going live. We'll start tying everything in from my page. We'll start doing it on actually the marketing at 30,000 feet. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, you guys be good to each other, and we'll see you soon.
See you, everybody.